We'll be getting started here pretty shortly with our cooking of Texas sheet cake with my mom and answering some different frequently asked questions about property taxes, property value, what the role of the auditor's office is. If you have any questions that may pop up here before taxes are due or anything more specific on property values or property taxes, feel free to chat those into any of the comment sections. We'll be happy to answer any of those. Although I do see a question that says, send me some of the Texas sheet cake. And unfortunately, that specific person lives in Columbus. So maybe at some point I'll actually see my sister again and we can give her some of the sheet cake. But this is actually a really simple recipe to make. Something that, no holiday with my dad's side, my grandmother, would be complete without her making this homemade recipe for dessert, the Texas sheet cake. I always had it, that and the pink jello, which maybe at some point, we'll go over how to make that too. But really simple, straightforward recipe that we'll be sharing and going over some of the simple kind of answers to questions that we've been getting quite a bit at the auditor's office. So we'll be beginning in just a few minutes here with making some of the sheet cake and going over some of your different frequently asked questions. So feel free to, like I said, chat those in, send them over, and we'll be happy to answer them. But I think let's go ahead, Mom, and I guess let's get started. We're going to do things a little bit backwards here, right? Yes?
Unlike taxes.
Yes.
Straight ahead.
No, taxes are not straight ahead. There's a lot going in with those. I'll be monitoring any of your questions and different things as well, so feel free to chat those in. So we'll be doing things a little bit backwards now. And so first, we actually made one sheet cake already just now because we put the frosting on. If you've ever had Texas sheet cake, it's kind of like a brownie and a cake.
Mm-hmm. Very moist.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
Yeah. So
chocolate on
tasty.
chocolate.
So we've already made one, so we'll actually put the frosting on that first. That way it's still warm and toasty. You should put the frosting on when it's warm. And then we'll actually make another one. So yes, our county administrator asked if she'd be getting some. So we'll have at least one sheet for the commissioner's office and one for our office. So if you do stop by the county tomorrow, you can pick up a piece of cake if you like. So what's first in terms of the frosting, and then we'll go over to the actual cake itself. And while Mom's explaining real quick the frosting, I'll share in the comments the actual recipe for today.
So the frosting itself only takes 4 ingredients. It says oleo in the recipe, but
I've never actually heard of oleo before looking at this recipe.
Yeah, it's like a margarine, but we actually are using butter. So 1 stick of butter.
Apparently we're butter people.
Butter people.
We're butter
is
people.
better. 4 tablespoons of cocoa. And you can use the dark cocoa, or you can use just regular Hershey's cocoa. We use the Hershey's, but not the dark cocoa. And then 6 tablespoons of milk. And you want to put that on the stove and mix it up until it comes to a boil. And then we have the powdered sugar that we need to.
So I gotta take this. This looks like a tasty thing of chocolate milk, a little bit.
It kind of will be. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and put it on the oven.
Yep.
And then how high?
Maybe medium high heat, so 6. And then stir it up, get the butter melted.
Okay. With a spoon
Yeah,
here.
you can.
Just keep stirring it. Already.
Just enough to get the butter.
This is to make the frosting.
Yes. This is for the frosting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is. Obviously, it's tax season. We've been very, very busy in our office just answering folks' questions, calls in quite a bit. I get many myself, or other staff do too. And so, so many different people have questions. With this being a revaluation year, there's been lots of changes throughout the county with values. And, one of the biggest questions is how could my property values, and typically folks just look at the taxes, and those do change. When values change, taxes change, either up, down, or they stay constant sometimes too. But folks will often say, well, how can my property values increase that much? In certain areas of our county, we've actually seen property values increase from our old value in 2019 to our new value here in 2020 by, we've seen doubling in a good number of spots, especially in Conneaut area, actually. And so folks will say, well, there's no way that changed over 1 year. And there actually They're absolutely right. I'm still stirring this. I don't know if I'm doing a good job at stirring it, but I'm
You need to
stirring
stir
it.
it
No,
for you?
I can do it. But they're right. It doesn't just increase over 1 year. So it increases actually since the 2014 reval. Our revaluation occurred back in 2014. So your old value, what you're paying taxes on last year in 2019, was actually based on the information, some of the market data, some of the condition data that our office had back in 2014. So your value didn't change in just 1 year, but actually changed over 6 years. And still, people can say, well, how can my house double in 6 years in value? And I'll often ask, well, one thing to think about is the real estate market back in 2014. Back, still when the economy was not doing too well, especially here in Ashtabula County, and what would the folks have put their home on the market for back in 2014? So that's often a question I'll ask. And versus here in 2020, the real estate market has changed dramatically. And what we've seen throughout the county largely is that values back in 2014 were almost half of what they were in 2013 and prior, taking into account the market during the recession. And so often, actually, people's 2020 values, the values that you're paying your taxes on this year, are actually going back to the pre-recession values back in 2012 or back in 2008. So that's one question that we often get. How did my property value rise so much in just 1 year? Well, again, it's actually over 6 years. So I think I'm done stirring this. This looks like hot chocolate.
Is it you have to bring it to
Oh.
a boil.
I did that wrong.
That's
okay,
all right.
I've got to relight that. So
Just scrape the side to make sure it all comes down. All that cocoa gets mixed in so there's no clumps of cocoa.
apparently it has to boil.
Yeah, so you don't have to stir it constantly. Just watch it because when it does start to
Oh,
boil,
okay, it's boiling now.
it's boiling. So now you can bring it
Now I'm
over.
done?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn it off. They have a gas stove
I have
here.
a question.
Okay, well, so I pour this in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
This
pour
is
it
for
in
the
there.
frosting. Oh,
Yeah.
there's still little clumps in here.
That's all right. We'll mix it with the mixer then.
Okay.
It should be good.
So you empty out, this is the basis for the frosting for the Texas sheet cake. And we want to get as many clumps and different things as we can.
You can use this spatula.
Oh, okay. I already see some questions actually. That's a great question. So my friends Bob and Carla from Windsor Township, their township trustee and fiscal officer down there, they asked a great question. You probably had seen our forfeited land sale this past week, and how we sold 93 parcels, brought in about $145,000 from the sale. Actually, it's a great auction. We had really robust different biddings and things. It was a lot of fun. And so that $145,000. Well, the question is, what happens to it? Where does that money actually go? That's a great question. It does go back to the local entities first to make sure everything's whole. So by law, for example, though, there's certain percentages that are taken out. For example, prosecutor's office, because they did all the work with the forfeitures and the foreclosures through the courts, they get a certain percentage. The treasurer's office gets a certain percentage. Our office gets a certain percentage. So after those small percentages, so I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm just
So you have to sift that powdered
Okay,
sugar.
so this is a mixture. I'll get back to that question. This is a mixture of what?
So powdered sugar is the last ingredient for the frosting. You want it
This
to
is just
be
powdered sugar?
Just powdered
Oh,
sugar.
wow, that's a lot of
Yep.
powdered sugar.
Four cups of
4
powdered
cups
sugar.
of powdered sugar?
And we already sifted some of
Good
it.
thing I went to the dentist last week. Okay.
Yeah, this takes a lot
What is
of
this thing?
lot of sugar. That's a sifter. So it gets the powdered sugar nice and fine. So when you make your frosting, it's not going to be clumped together. And
Apparently that's important. I can actually taste it on my tongue right now. Because it's kind of getting everywhere.
can you smell the chocolate?
Yes, I can smell
Okay, good.
Okay. So I'm sifting it. So now what?
Yep. So once it's all sifted, then
Yep.
you want to add it to the hot cocoa mixture.
The whole thing?
Add half of it to begin with.
Okay.
So that way,
We'll add half of it to begin with.
yeah, so it's not, when you go to mix it, it's not going to fly everywhere. That's good. Just get it mixed
That
up
looks
and
like
then,
the snow outside.
and then add the other half.
Yes. So the question, so when does it actually go to the townships and local entities? Like I said, that helps to make the back taxes whole. It's a big process, though. It actually takes about 3 months after the sale to formally transfer all the property, record the deeds. The courts still have to have some action with it. All the money's been paid in, but actually, we submit money to local entities twice a year after you pay your taxes. So after you pay your taxes in the fall,
Yeah, you can have it.
I'm gonna bet that there's gonna be chocolate flying everywhere here pretty soon. So we submit local payments as part of the role of the auditor's office is to actually pay out funds to local entities like your schools, your townships, your first responders. We do that twice a year. So if we have all the funds in, which we will, by the second half, so just like you pay your second half taxes, there's powdered sugar flying everywhere. Just like you pay your second half taxes, we pay that money to local entities. So, Carla, we're hoping to have the funds for that second half. Now, for example, though, a lot of properties were kind of sprinkled all throughout. Roaming Shores had a good number, Dorset Township. So, your township, for example, there was actually a house in Windsor Township that was going to be for sale. They actually, a legal action was filed on that property, so they did not end up selling it. So your township probably will not see much of a difference in terms of any money from the sale. I can't remember if there are other properties in Windsor. There may have been a few. But some of our local entities will see, a couple $1,000s perhaps, actually of back taxes being able to be paid. And the important thing with that is that that's often property that's either abandoned, the folks died and there's no one to take it, or they walked away from it and they moved far away. And so it's not being enjoyed. Oftentimes the adjacent property owners will buy it and use it, which is a really good thing to be able to bring that. My throat's all covered in powdered sugar. No, I'm good. I didn't cough on it. Don't worry. So that was a great question. Here, go ahead. So we need to stir all this in. So this is the powdered sugar.
So once
and
it's
the
all mixed,
cocoa.
then we'll add it to the
So it's all mixed. So let's go ahead and we cook the cake ahead of time here, just to be able to pour it on here. Oh, look at that thing. So this looks kind of like a big brownie pan, like it's a Texas sheet cake. So this is the underlying cake, which we'll make the batter for here very soon. And now we'll actually just put the frosting. Again, this is all chocolate. This is a lot of chocolate, and so you want to do it while it's hot to be able to melt everything together. So am I correct? I just pour it on.
Pour it on there. Did I give you the spatula to split it?
Well, I'm using a spatula.
Let me see.
Okay. So another question that we're often asked, and it says, that people will kind of have misconceptions over, is that their taxes should change in proportion to their change in value. If your value goes down 5%, well, my taxes should go down 5%. Or if my value goes up 30%, well, my taxes should go up 30% too. And it doesn't work that way. The state of Ohio is somewhat convoluted in the actual whole process. There's a reason why it takes our office quite a number of days and man hours to be able to calculate tax rates and to do this whole entire revaluation process, especially when it comes to levies and different amounts. Because really what our role and responsibilities, remember, we didn't raise your taxes, we didn't change your taxes, we looked at your value. We said, what would the market be able to sell your property for? Would you be able to get on the open market for your property on January 1st? This looks really good. On January 1st of 2020. And then, so we determine your property value. Then we look at all the different levies that have been passed in your area. We look at the changes in your area for the value changes. And essentially, what that means is that your local entities will, by and large, not actually see a change in revenue during a revaluation. So people will say, well, hey, values went up quite a bit. That's to help give local government revenue who lost it during COVID. Well, actually, local governments will see a little bit of a change, but they don't really see much of an impact. It's a very steady, flat form of revenue, property taxes. And that's because we have to keep it essentially flat, essentially whole. No matter the changes in the value, if an entity passes a $1 million levy, they'll typically, traditionally, always receive about $1 million a year for that levy. And so it's our job then to be able to calculate out, well, with changes in valuation, what's your new tax burden based on your property's value in relation to the district's value, and how does that correlate to making sure that we just bring in $1 million? If we were to tie property value changes directly with tax changes, well, ironically, folks would be paying 2, 3, 4 times as much as what they would be paying now, because over the years, you're actually being charged less in terms of a tax millage. You're being charged less than what the voters actually initially approved. 4 mil levy, you might be charged 2 mils now, because there's more people paying into the pot, and there's more businesses, there's more residences actually contributing to that local levy, keeping the revenue whole. So I just spread all the frosting.
Yep, you want
It's already started to actually kind of cool.
You want to make sure you can spread it all to the sides, every corner. Get it. You can pull it from the center.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not making. I just talked about making the revenue whole and flat and normal, and I'm not making this this frosting very flat and level. But you wanna spread this apparently out entirely, making sure that it all gets covered. And so this is actually melting, this chocolate.
Yeah, just because the cake is warm, so that's the purpose
And
of keeping.
that's what you want to do. Okay, so I think we're pretty well set.
Some here.
Oh, right there. Okay. And then now what do you do with it?
So now it's done. Now we just wait for.
Oh,
Now we put it back in the sink.
had some good frosting. I noticed I'm not going to touch the cake again. As a kid, didn't you always enjoy tasting the spoon? That's pretty much all chocolate.
Chocolate, butter, and milk.
Yes, well, that's pretty tasty.
Let's
So
put
now,
that one in the dishwasher.
okay, just to prove that it's not gonna go back in the cake. So all the people are eating this tomorrow. So that was actually the end product of the Texas sheet cakes. Now we're going to do the actual batter portion, the actual cake itself part. So what is this part?
So the cake itself, it takes butter again. So go ahead, 2 sticks of butter. Go wash your hands. Wash your
It's good. It's good.
No, you wash your hands now.
So what else goes into
Okay,
it?
so butter, and then we have to add the cocoa. I believe it was 5 tablespoons of cocoa. And then
That's hot water.
yeah, that's hot. And then we add the water. And then the same thing as the frosting. You're going to want to get the butter all melted. And then when it comes to a boil, then it's done. Then you bring it back over. Do you want me to
Okay,
stir
so
this?
no,
for
it's
you?
fine. It's
You
fine.
sure?
So this is water, cocoa, and butter.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to put it back on the sticks. Do you have a spoon I can use?
Yeah, let me get this one washed here.
Okay. So another kind of frequently asked question, or maybe a misconception that folks have oftentimes is that, well, those values then in my taxes that I pay, that's fine. There's no changes with them. The auditor said this, and that's it. Well, there's a couple of different things that kind of get interplayed with that. One, and folks have, a question or a common comment that I've seen from people is that we really don't care about our senior citizens here in the county. We're trying to tax them out of their homes. And obviously nothing can be further from the truth. We have to essentially, no matter who lives in the home, we have to look at what the value is as of January 1st, 2020, and then we apply the tax rates. Now, for senior citizens, or for really anyone, there are different tax credits that are available to people. Our office, as you know, for the first time, sent out a postcard to every residence here in the county this past fall, let them know about the revaluation process, but also about the tax credits that are available, your homestead, your owner occupancy, and CAUV. And we've seen a tremendous number, even before that postcard, but since that postcard, a tremendous number of residents taking advantage of those different credits. The homestead being for senior citizens or for people who are permanently disabled, owner occupancy for residents who own their home and live in it, don't rent it out, for example, and CAUV, obviously for those who are engaging in agriculture practices or have large tracts of land that are woodlands that they're wanting to timber at some point. So there's that piece of it where no matter, even if you agree with your value, there might be credits that are available for you to decrease your tax burden. And we'll be happy to talk to you about those. And then the other piece, if you don't agree with your value, you can actually contest it. I tell people all the time, Look at an income tax. You can't really contest that. There's no wiggle room. Look at a sales tax. Can't really contest that. Whatever you buy, you pay the tax on. Look at fees for different services that raise funds. You can't really contest those. Property taxes are, because they are so variable. They're so up to kind of different interpretations. They are contestable, which is it's kind of a nice, unique tax burden aspect. So you can actually contest your value, which will interplay with your property taxes. Now, let's say, for example, your value that we determined as of January 1st, 2020 is, let's say it's $200,000. And you're going to say, no, it's no more. I could never get more than $100,000 out of this property. And so we would say, okay, well, feel free. Then we'll walk you through the board of revision form. It's a very easy form process. But some people will say, well, I expect that if my value gets dropped in half, I would expect to see a 50% reduction in my taxes, right? That's not necessarily the case. Because, as I shared earlier, your changes in value don't necessarily correlate to your changes in taxes. You have your values and you have your tax rates, which also change every year too, depending on the levies are passed, what's happening with the district. If overall values in the district increase quite a bit, well, we need to charge each individual property owner less to bring in the same amount of money, and vice versa too. If values go down, we'll have to charge each individual property owner a higher tax rate to still bring in the same amount of money. So now I've been stirring this, and it's, I think, almost ready to boil. And this is the actual Texas sheet cake batter itself. That's the butter, this is the water,
Yep.
and the cocoa.
Yep.
Yes.
So you can let it,
So
you can stop stirring and just see,
wait.
watch it, because when it does start to boil, you don't
Wait
want it
till
to
it boils.
burn.
Okay. So you can actually challenge your value through the board of revision. And we've been getting lots of questions saying, well, why would the auditor's office ever agree to a challenge to their value? Well, there are 80,000 or so parcels that we have here in the county, and so naturally, A, we make mistakes. B, there could be information that we didn't know that was hidden, or C, maybe you know something more about your property than we do. All right, this is boiling.
Is it okay? Go ahead and take it off.
Okay,
Turn off the heat.
and that way.
Ooh, so you want to go ahead
This
and
is,
pour
like I
it in.
said, just like hot chocolate. It's quite good smelling. So
And then-
pour it all in here.
Yes, make sure scoop it out with.
Let's scrape it out. Alrighty. So the board of revision, we actually, last year as an example, we had 100 cases, 100 instances where someone challenged their value, and we agreed, or maybe lowered our value over 3/4 the time in those cases. And a good number of those cases last year, we didn't even have an actual hearing. We just looked in our office, and the board of revision is made up of
Yep, that's good.
all right, made up of county commissioner, the county treasurer, and then myself, the county auditor. And so we'll often actually agree or maybe make some changes, because ultimately how we do valuation determinations are mass scale. So it's looking at mass data, it's looking at sales, it's looking at averages, and every home is unique. So we have to do each one of these individually, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
This
do
is
the
what?
Flour, 2 cups flour, 2 cups sugar, and a
All blended
teaspoon,
together?
half teaspoon of salt. Yeah. So before you put it in here, which we already did, just make sure it's all mixed together.
Yes.
Flour, sugar, and salt.
You can kind of see it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
then you
put
can
half
dump
of it in, of the whole
Just
thing?
dump the whole thing in.
Ooh. Oh boy.
Did it
That
spill?
just did. That's okay.
That's
It's okay. So okay. So we'll
You can put the spatula in that bowl and then scrape
That's
down
okay.
the sides when you're.
So we'll start to mix in. This is the batter for the actual Texas sheet cake itself. So I see Dave Turk, our friend from Windsor Township, asked when I can deliver these. Sorry, no. Well, I won't be in I'm in Colebrook right now, but I won't be in Windsor tomorrow. But we will be having this at the office if folks are coming in to pay their taxes. So like I said, ultimately, board of revision, that's the area to go. That's the formal process to actually share your disagreements with our value. And you can do that from now up until March 31st, actually filing the form, and we'll be hearing those all throughout the year. We're going to make them as customer service friendly as possible in terms of actually having Zoom, virtual type sessions instead of hearings. We're trying to be deliberating as many as we can outside of the actual hearing process as possible. Those look really good.
Right,
I would love to stick my finger in there,
you
but
can't.
I can't do that. I'm just going to make sure that we're not having any other questions being asked on here as well. So that was the actual flour, the sugar, and the salt, right?
Yep, and go
Okay.
ahead and scrape down the sides before you add in any other ingredient.
Okay. So that's the border revision, and that's where you can challenge your value if you disagree with your value. Now, oftentimes, I answer the phone as many times as I can in our office itself, and folks will call and say, my taxes increased and changed dramatically from last year. What can we do about that? Well, first thing I ask is, what do you think of your value? Do you think your value is what you would get on the market if you were to put it for sale on January 1st of 2020? And oftentimes folks will say, I don't know what my value could be or what it should be. I just don't agree with the change. Well, for the people that think their value is roughly accurate, unfortunately there isn't much that we can really do because we determine your value. If you agree with that value, then we assign the tax rates.
Eggs first.
Oh, eggs? Okay.
Eggs and vanilla.
So this is eggs and vanilla mixed in there together.
Those are Grandpa's farm eggs.
Oh, so fresh from the farm. And we're cooking them this time. If you remember the tiramisu recipe from last time, we didn't cook those. But we didn't have to because they were pasteurized. Yep. So mixing the eggs there. You can already kind of sense that the cocoa, the batter is getting hard just because it's butter, it's lots of chocolate. We're mixing all the eggs. Now, another question that we're often asked is that we just essentially determine the value just by staying in our offices in Jefferson, and this is sour cream. Now, I was talking to our new state rep yesterday, Sarah Fowler, and she said that her family uses vinegar, which I thought was crazy, but
That would be interesting.
it'd be different.
Yeah, different.
Yes. If she's
Nothing's
watching, I
crazy
didn't call
about-
her crazy. It's
No,
just that's like her
nothing's-
recipe is crazy.
Yeah, nothing's crazy about any recipes.
No,
I'd like to try that one.
Yeah,
See
so
the
we might. But this one calls for sour cream, which is kind of fun. A lot of the cookies that I've made, it's fine. A lot of the cookies I've made call for sour cream too, which is fun. So we had not just in our office in Jefferson and did evaluations. We went out and looked at every single one of the 8,000 parcels, took a drive. We also looked at sales data. And really, if you think about, if you talk to a realtor here in the past couple of weeks or so, even the year, our market here in the county has been just on fire in terms of real estate, in terms of the supply and demand aspects, and that's really caused values to increase quite a bit.
So baking soda.
This is baking soda. This is the last piece that you add in here. Now, you had a question, didn't you?
I did. What happens to the family or the people who didn't realize that their taxes were going to go up so high and they didn't prepare for it?
That's a good question. So we did try and educate folks to share it out that values could change. We shared the new value. I didn't even ask her to ask that question. We shared the new value in the fall with folks that they could contest it in the fall informally. But for many people, like I said, changes in value doesn't necessarily correlate to changes in taxes. So your taxes could have gone up 50%. Your value could have only gone up by maybe 10 or 20%. That actually happened to someone in Ashtabula Harbor. The Ashtabula Harbor district, their value went down overall. This person's individual value, though, went up. So now, in a sense, they have an even higher share of the district's value than they did last year, even though their value only went up a little bit because everyone else's went down. And so now they have an even higher share of the tax burden. And so if you weren't fully prepared for that, like I said, maybe senior citizens will show you tax credits, but a lot of the actual tax side is handled through the treasurer's office. So things like, pour the batter out, so you just mix it all together, just pour it right out.
Yeah.
Anything like tax payments, tax collection, the actual process to make your payments, the tax bills. We've been getting a lot of calls with people asking about, well, hey, where's my tax bill? I haven't gotten it yet. Actually, that whole process is through the treasurer's office. And so you can, number of things. One, they have a payment plan option with people. So you can, if you're current with your taxes, I believe, you can actually, I'm rolling
Do you mean to hold the bowl?
Yes, I'm trying. This is going to drop here. Oh, thank you. So you can actually do tax payments monthly if you'd like, if you don't pay it through your mortgage company. Now let's say there's other options too. You can pay just the first half now if you'd like. Even if you're contesting your property value though, you'll want to pay your first half taxes at the very least. And that deadline is the 17th. So that's in just a little bit here. Ooh, look at that. And that's just all, it looks nice. It looks just like brownie batter. Very tasty. So, let's say you didn't get your tax bills. Well, you can actually go on our website and print it out, or you can give the treasurer's office a call, ask them to send you another one, or to make that payment. And many folks, of course, due to COVID and everything, they're afraid of coming into the office for things. In terms of tax payments, there's a drop-off box the treasurer's office has right in the county courthouse. There's, you can mail it in if you'd like. As long as it's postmarked, you're good. You can also pay online by phone. So we've got the batter. This is all done.
Yep.
Again, I'm not. Oh my! It tastes just like brownie batter. This stuff is.
It's even better than brownie batter.
It really is actually. It's less. It's all homemade. That's tasty stuff.
I will work on him for next time.
Look, we're right in the sink. We're good. We're good. Okay. So how long do you actually bake it?
So on 400 for, what did we say, 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes or so. And then you might, the key is making sure that the batter actually kind of pulls away from the sides. So, we'll start it at 20 minutes or so at 400 degrees, and it may take a little bit longer and maybe a little bit shorter. It'll just really depend on your oven and like I said, that type of thing. So, that's, is it calorie free? No, unfortunately not, but it is tasty nonetheless. We had a question too. What would qualify someone for the homestead? That's a great question. So we baked, Mom baked one yesterday. Can we do you have a knife?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what it'll look like finally. So what qualifies someone for the homestead? That's if you're 65 or older. You own the home or you have the mortgage through it, so your name's on the deed, and you make less than $33,800. That number changes every year in Ohio adjusted gross income. So that is line 3 of your Ohio tax return. And essentially, the state legislature, they determine who's eligible for homestead. They determine that the credit is actually $25,000 off the value of your home. So instead of your home being worth $100,000 for tax purposes, now it's worth $75,000, for example. And then you get the difference. It's usually about $400 or $500. So take a look at your Ohio adjusted gross income. If it's less than that $33,800, next year is $34,200, you can qualify. You can sign up in our office. Very easy application. You can also pull it off of our website and get it there. Super kind of simple to do and to find. I'm just making sure that we don't have any other questions or anything like that. And that's really the best credit that we can offer folks outside, of course, of CAUV. And you'll see it looks just like a brownie, but a little more cakey, right?
More cakey.
Can you eat it with your fingers?
Yes, you can.
That
you can.
That is very good.
And you shouldn't eat raw egg like that either.
I'm still here.
You're still
I'm good.
here.
So feel free. Reach out if you have more questions. Those are just a quick handful of the questions that we get in our office right around this time for tax season. We're always happy to answer more. Email, call, stop by, and we'll be happy. Text a sheet cake recipe. Put it in the comments. Very easy to make. Excellent, tasty. If you are in Jefferson tomorrow, you can stop by and pick up a slice.
This is Grandma T's recipe.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, put that in the comments. So, alrighty. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thank you all so much. Oh, I got some dip on the screen here. That's okay. No problem whatsoever.
Super Bowl Sunday too.
Yes, it is Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So enjoy the rest of your day.